Come in, I need more than just company tonight. The rain had started just before sunset, one of those quiet, persistent rains that turned every streetlight into a halo and every shadow into a secret. The small town of Elridge sat on the edge of nowhere, a forgotten dot between mountains and desert. I had been traveling for 3 days straight, trying to escape something I didn't dare name. My car finally gave up its willpower right outside a dimly lit inn. The neon sign flickered like a dying heartbeat, "Traveler's Rest." It felt like fate, or punishment. I pushed the door open, and the small bell above it chimed faintly. Inside, the scent of old wood, rain-soaked coats, and cheap whiskey lingered. A fire crackled in the corner. Behind the counter stood a woman, tall, slender, her hair the color of midnight coffee, eyes too weary to belong to someone her age. She looked up, her gaze meeting mine for a second that lasted too long. "Rough night?" she asked softly. I nodded, dropping my soaked bag on the floor. "You could say that. You'll want a room, I assume." "Just for the night." She hesitated, as if deciding whether to say something else. Then, with a small nod, she turned, took a key off the hook, and handed it to me. "Room 4, up the stairs." "But," she paused again, "you might prefer to sit by the fire for a while. You look like you've been running." Her words landed deeper than she could have known. I smiled faintly. "Maybe I have." I sat by the fire, listening to the rain drum against the windows. She joined me a few minutes later, holding 2 mugs of coffee. Steam curled up between us like a fragile bridge. "Thanks," I murmured. "No one should drink alone on a night like this," she said, her voice almost lost in the crackle of the logs. We sat in silence for a while. It was the kind of silence that didn't ask for words, only presence. I finally asked, "Do you live here alone?" Her lips curved faintly. "This inn was my husband's dream. After he passed, it became my duty." "I'm sorry." "Don't be," she said, shaking her head slowly. "He died doing what he loved, traveling. I think he envied people like you. People like me, the ones still running." There was something in her tone, not judgment, but understanding. I wanted to tell her that I wasn't running to anything. I was running from something, from memories that haunted my every reflection. But I didn't. Instead, I asked, "What about you? Ever think of leaving this place?" She looked toward the window, where rain streaked the glass in trembling lines. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but then the night falls, and travelers come in, and for a few hours, I don't feel so alone." There was a loneliness in her voice that felt like an echo of my own. Hours passed like that, 2 strangers sharing silence and coffee. Then the clock struck 11. She stood, brushing imaginary dust off her apron. "You should get some rest," she said. "Maybe you should too." She smiled faintly. "I don't sleep much. The inn feels too quiet when everyone's asleep." I rose, thanked her, and walked toward the stairs. But before I reached the top, I heard her voice behind me, soft, trembling. "Wait." I turned. She stood by the fire, her eyes reflecting its amber light. "Come in," she said quietly, as if repeating something meant only for me. "I need more than just company tonight." For a moment, time seemed to stop. I didn't move, neither did she. The air between us thickened with things unspoken: grief, loneliness, longing. Finally, I stepped closer. Her room was small but warm, a single lamp casting a golden glow over the wooden walls. The bed was neatly made, the air smelling faintly of lavender and old books. She closed the door behind us gently, as though afraid the rain might hear. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "That sounded human," I said. "It sounded human." She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled sadly. "It's been a long time since anyone's looked at me like that." I didn't ask how long. I didn't want to break the fragile truth between us. We sat on the edge of the bed, our shoulders almost touching. She told me her name, Lena, and her story unfolded in fragments. She had once been a musician, traveling from town to town, before settling here with the man she loved. After his accident, she couldn't bring herself to leave. The inn became her sanctuary, and her prison. As she spoke, I felt something shift inside me. Her loneliness mirrored mine. The weight I'd been carrying, guilt, regret, fear, began to loosen. When she asked about me, I told her part of the truth. That I had been a photographer. That I'd lost my wife 2 years ago. That every picture I took after that felt empty. She died in an avalanche, I said quietly. We were climbing in Switzerland. She always wanted to reach the top. I should have stopped her. Lena reached out, her hand resting lightly on mine. You couldn't have known. But I was supposed to protect her, I whispered. You loved her, she said. That was enough. Tears blurred my vision. It had been 2 years since anyone had spoken to me like that, not with pity, but with understanding. The rain outside grew heavier, thrumming like a heartbeat against the walls. We sat in that soft light, two broken souls sharing their cracks. When our eyes met again, something unspoken passed between us, not lust, but longing for warmth, for connection, for being seen. She leaned forward first, her lips brushing mine like a question. I answered it. The kiss was slow, hesitant, and real, the kind that carries both sorrow and solace. Later, we lay side by side, the fire from the next room flickering faintly through the doorway. The rain had softened into a lullaby. Do you ever think, she murmured, that maybe the people we meet by accident are the ones we were meant to find? I smiled against her shoulder. If so, I guess fate knows what it's doing. She laughed softly, a sound like something fragile breaking free. We talked until dawn, about dreams, regrets, and the strange beauty of brokenness. She told me she still played the piano sometimes, late at night when the guests were asleep. I asked her to play for me someday. She said she would, if I ever came back. When morning came, I watched her by the window, sunlight painting her face in gold. For a moment, she looked free, no longer the lonely innkeeper, but the woman she used to be. I wanted to stay. God, I wanted to. But some part of me knew, we were two travelers whose paths had crossed for a reason, not a lifetime. I'll be back, I said quietly. She turned, her eyes soft. Travelers always say that, I mean it. She smiled, touched my face gently, and whispered, then I'll keep the fire lit. I drove away as the sun climbed higher, the road shimmering with the remnants of rain. In my rearview mirror, the inn grew smaller, but the warmth remained, somewhere deep in my chest. For the first time in 2 years, I didn't feel like I was running. I felt like I was going toward something. Weeks later, a letter arrived at my apartment in Denver. No return address, just my name, written in looping handwriting. Inside was a single page, faintly scented with lavender. Greater than, the piano still waits. The fire still burns. Come in, I still need more than just company tonight. I read it over and over, the words filling the spaces in me that had been empty for too long. That night, I packed my camera again. Not to escape, but to return. The road to Elridge felt different now, not endless, but inviting. The rain began once more, soft and familiar. And as the first lights of the inn came into view, I realized something profound. Sometimes, we meet people not to save them, but to be reminded that we can still be saved.